Let's flow. Let's connect and flow. Welcome to The Shift. This space is created with intention, with care, and lived experiences. Today, we are continuing our series exploring the universal laws and how they show up in our work, in our leadership, in our entrepreneurship, and in our everyday lives. In our last session, we explored the universal law of action. The understanding of it is that nothing changes until we move. Today, we move into part 5, working with the universal law of adjustment. Just because action may begin the journey doesn't mean that you can't adjust through it. It allows us to realign and learn and continue to move forward when life shifts around us. So today, we're going to explore what the law of adjustment really looks like in our lives, in our decisions, and in the way we navigate life. So as we begin today, I want to thank you for joining me. If you're already here at episode or part 5, then you already know that you are responsible for you. No other way to say it. When I found that out, it was just, whoa, right? That life was creating all around me, all the scenarios, even the backdrop, the background people. They were showing up in my life at that moment to be just background, whether it was noisy or whether it was influential. It was my story. Blows you away, right? The universal law of adjustment teaches us that when results do not align with our intention, refinement is required. Sometimes not retreat. Our egoic subconscious wants us to retreat because that's what it knows to do in every scenario. It's used to that. It's practiced that so much within you that that's how you perform. It doesn't mean that it's a right or wrong, guys. It just means that it is one of your it is, right? Put that, the is word in parentheses. It's just what occurs consistently with the same result happening, right? You're expecting a different result. Okay. I think that hit home. Most of what we call life is happening to us is actually life responding to a choice that we've made. Blew my mind when I first had to sit with that internally. Sometimes the choice was conscious, sometimes it was unconscious, but nonetheless, we made it, right? And we are responsible, or we believe that we shouldn't be responsible for the outcome of it, especially if we were unconscious of it, or subconscious is flowing around us with that information. You didn't do that, somebody else did it, because that's the way we were taught. And it wasn't just because I'm Black, or just because somebody else is Asian, or just because somebody else is Cuban, or somebody else is white. We were taught these traditional things because somebody else taught it to us, and somebody else taught that to them, and somebody else, and it was never questioned. It just had a reaction to it that always opened an avenue that we got to look at when we're walking down and going, this is happening to me because, it always happens. This always happens. No matter what choice I make, this always happens. right? But if the choice, maybe, if you find out you're the common denominator, then you get to discern what the choices were, right? So when the outcome shows up in a way that we don't prefer, we get to label it as something other than failure, because most likely our unconscious mind will go there immediately. You failed, or if this is a setback, you'll never get back on your feet, this is a convenience, or even this is an injustice. But the law of adjustment says otherwise. It says you're not stuck. Sandy, you're not stuck. You're not doomed. You're not behind. It allows you to hear, oh, you're in a refining mode. You can change this. You can shift from this to that. And that includes employee. That includes you being an entrepreneur, first-time buyer, or mom and pop store, first-time owner, or a CEO. That can include you being a single mom, a single dad, shared parents that are experiencing parenthood, that are experiencing different versions of childhood that your child is growing up in, because your child is different at 18 than he or she was at 8. It's a different vibrational section of life, or expression of life. I like that better, right? Or not. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Okay? So the law of adjustment isn't about you punishing yourself, or it's not about punishing you. Life is punishing me. The law of adjustment is also can be understood as the law of love. It's not withholding from you. It doesn't take from one person and give to another. Because, man, that was one of my things. Well, how come my older brother and sister get all these good things, and how come God gave them all the smarts, and how come my younger brother and sister? Oh, best thing is my older sibling took care of all her clothes. So guess what? I got the hand-me-downs. Now that's how I perceived it. It's not how my mom perceived it. I'm quite sure that's probably not how my sister perceived it. But by the time my siblings, my younger siblings, got there, they got new shit. So unconsciously, I didn't know. I built a thought process that life doesn't like me. Middle child syndrome. No matter what I'm going to do, I'm not going to get, new stuff. I'm always going to end up with hand-me-downs, hand-me-down bike, a hand-me-down this, a hand-me-down, right? That's young kids' thought process, but none of thought process anyway. But life isn't trying to be kind to my older sibling or my younger sibling. That's just how that story played out with whatever the person that was taking care of me put forth as intention to make the household work, right? I just use that as an example. So love is alignment, right? So it's not trying to take from one person and give to another. It does not operate through favoritism. But as a kid, I thought older siblings got favoritism, younger siblings got favoritism. It's not meant to operate through deprivation. either trying to deprive me of something. It bestows it equally. It's just consciously or unconsciously, how do I see it, perceive it? The law of love and the law of adjustment always respond in alignment. Blew my mind. And go figure, I'm learning this in the workplace as well. Through my 40 years of working as an employee. Right? I believe that love is the highest level. That is not indulgence. Love is alignment. If something in my life is misaligned, love will not sustain the misalignment for forever. It will move within me so that it will help me to find where the misalignment is. It's there to flush it out. Simple nudges, sometimes gently, sometimes boldly, but always with the intention of expansion. Did that just open a container of information within you that said, ooh, let's go out and play, right? The law of adjustment does not condemn you for choosing imperfectly. It does not condemn you for choosing wrong. It doesn't go, you did that wrong. It doesn't want you to do that for yourself as well. But guess what? If that's what you want to do, that's a free will choice. And guess what? The universal laws have to comply to you. The energy has to comply to you. That vibration has to comply to you. Right? Adjustment doesn't condemn you. I'm going to say that again. It doesn't condemn you for choosing or making a wrong choice. The choice is not wrong. It's uncomfortable to you and you don't like it. That's where the law of adjustment comes in and says, then change it. It refines you through awareness. You decide if you're constantly going online and hearing all these different videos that tell you that you shouldn't be an employee and you're being an employee to the corporations or the devil and evil and sucking you dry and everything, you need to go. I'm not going to say what you need to do. You can do whatever you want to do. I had to go within, and ask myself some questions about what I really wanted. And some of those questions were what I considered a little too late, because I started creating my business before I even knew who I really was. Because I had been an employee for so long, but I didn't work as an employee for companies that were, when I look back at it, they weren't misaligned. They were doing some great stuff. Some great things, supporting the arts and supporting neighborhoods and children and whatnot. But I was moving so fast, listening to everybody tell me, well, you know all this stuff and you do all this stuff for the company. You could have your own clientele and you could have, but I didn't even ask myself, do I really want to own my own company? Do I really want to wear all the hats? Do I really want to be the accountant and be the product? Because I'm the product. Do I really want to have employees? Do I really want to be a manager? These are the questions. Because as I was raising my kids, I loved having my checks, counting on my checks coming in every 2 weeks in a timely manner. I loved getting my bonuses and getting my raises and being able to take off time and have vacation and be with my kids and have paid vacation. And I loved that stuff. That's who I was at that time. That's where you get to go inward and say, what about me? Well, once you say, what about me, the internal you, the higher being you says, yes, tell me about you. What do you really want? It's not degrading to be an employee of a company you like working with. This world is not totally archaic or chaotic. It's where you want to play. Yes, there are some people that are descriptive in the description. They are beast in the business. They don't care about anybody except themselves and making money. And when they die, they want to die with all that money. But the physical part of that doesn't go wherever they're going next. It just moves on to family. Who knows? And who knows? It might move on to family who decides, I don't want to be anybody like my dad or my mom or my uncle or whatnot. I want to take this money and do good. So they have the opportunity to adjust. Right? I'm just saying. Right? Adjustment does not condemn you for choosing imperfectly. It refines you through awareness. You become aware. And you become aware that you can ask yourself a question about the next choice you can make. Right? You made the best decision you could with the awareness you had at that particular time and made a choice. Now you have more awareness. So now you can adjust even better if you choose. I'm taking a pause there. Think about that. That's called, what do we call it? We call it evolution. The law of adjustment is ready and waiting to operate in the now moment. We get to release resistance and invite refinement if we want to. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. You can always go ahead and listen to whoever you were listening to before. The law of adjustance cannot override the human will. So it'll be there waiting for you to take action in its direction. It waits for you to be willing to move that way. When ego hardens and says, I refuse to change, and I've heard that several times. Matter of fact, I heard that several times today. I refuse. Well, if you refuse, then the universe says your wish is my command. Keep refusing and you get what you get. Life ain't doing nothing to you. It's doing everything because of you and because of what you say. And after you have that thought and you put it into action and you say it in and put it into motion, the universe or energy or life, whatever you choose to call it, is working on your behalf. And the more you bring yourself into it with whichever energy you have, the universe is doing everything because of you. That blew my mind. Now, I didn't know this the whole 40 years of working for different companies, but I did know that inwardly things were always, moving that way. I wasn't always in my subconscious ego state. I understand now that I was moving in and out of states of beingness, states of consciousness, becoming aware, right? Okay, so when awareness arises and says, okay, let's go back. When ego hardens and says, I refuse to change, adjustment, the law of adjustment, that's energy, it just stops, it stalls, it stays right where it's at. When awareness arises within you and says, what is this? And you say to your inner self, what is this trying to show me? Then the law of adjustment activates. That energy says, oh, Sandy wants to go there. And I have to laugh. I've been there quite a bit. It doesn't mean you have to. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. I say that all the time. Awareness arises and say, where do you want to go? What do you want me to show you? It activates in you something that's going to show you a place where you can adjust it or change it or alchemize it. You can't alchemize anything unless you realize that there's something that needs alchemization or something that needs transformation. You have to be aware of that, even as an employee, even as a manager or supervisor, even as a lead CEO, even as the owner of a Fortune 500 company. You're responsible for that. Either your ego is saying, I refuse to change. I'm going to do everything the same. It's working for me. I'm making the money, but everybody else isn't getting a piece of the pie. That's okay. I don't care. What you put out, there we go. We go all the way back to the law of not just action, but the law of cause and effect, or some like to call it, the law of karma. You get what you get. And people are getting what they get, but they're blaming other people for it. They're not, aware of it, but they're blaming other people for it. But you get what you get. Okay. So let's keep going. Awareness arises and says, as soon as you say, what is this trying to show me? It activates the law of adjustment that's waiting to move you, to adjust you. So in my last episode, part 4 and part 3, I talked about my supervisor, that one of the supervisors that I worked for, whose words and actions and tones were consistently belittling, not just to me, but just to everybody that she came in contact with. That she was the manager, and interim CEO when the CEO wasn't there, right? So she had all this power. Her energy was sharp and her communication very unkind. And I could feel the internal tension of not only the building, but I could feel it before I even left from home. But the frustration that I felt in the building was not being frustrated about her. I was feeling frustrated about myself for tolerating what was no longer aligning with me. My body was talking to me. And adjustment didn't mean reacting emotionally. That's not adjustment. It didn't mean for me to attack her character. What would that do for me? That wouldn't make me any better. It didn't mean me shrinking myself to survive either. The law of adjustment meant for me to get honest with myself. Forgive me. A cold is coming through to the end, and it's kind of like trying to hold on, but it's got to go. Things move through your body to cleanse you. So I released the need to control the outcome. And you know how I knew? I released the need to force the timing. I had said, this is what I said. Okay. I had to surrender the situation in a mature way. I wasn't exactly sure what that was, but I know I intended to, right? So I made a clear internal decision and said to not only, at that time, I didn't know it was called my higher self, but I said it to the divine in a meditation, in a prayer. She and I cannot work together in this way anymore. So either open the door for me to move or the door for her to move. And then I said, I don't care which one it is. I'm ready for either. Because it wasn't about me being rebellious. And it wasn't about me being unkind, because that wasn't my nature. It was about me finding my alignment again. Because I worked really well with a lot of other supervisors, managers, CEOs. I was in a lot of meetings or board meetings with sitting next to my bosses. And when they had a question that needed answered, they leaned over to me and I showed them graphs and whatnot. Or they would say, hey, let's let Sandra explain that part to her. That's what she does, this graph. So it wasn't about me being rebellious to the supervisor. It just wasn't. But I knew I had to release that control because I didn't like the energy anymore. I didn't like going into work that way, feeling that way. So she wasn't going to adjust herself. She was on a tangent and a rant. And it wasn't just about me. It was everyone. But I couldn't do anything for everyone else. I had to do what I needed to do for me. I could only go within for me. And when I adjusted internally, when I softened into my willingness, the situation shifted. That's how the law of adjustment operates. It waits for you to become willing. It waits for you to stop clinging to what is clearly misaligned. It waits for you to choose dignity over drama. Let's put it that way. In my case and her case. I wanted dignity. She wanted drama. She took everything that she knew about you, and she twisted it. She liked that. The law of adjustment doesn't require you to be hostile. It doesn't require hostility. It just requires you be honest with you. Once that internal shift happens, movement follows. It's freed up. It's not bottled up anymore. It begins to flow. Adjustment also operates as the law of attention. What you consistently focus on and expand in your awareness, how you consistently speak about it. If you're constantly speaking about unfairness, guess what? You get more unfairness because the universe says, oh, she's talking about that again. She must want more scenarios. Let's open the doors for her. Let's allow another person to walk through the door to give that to Sandy. When I learned that I needed to stop focusing on my supervisors being unfair to me or trying to blame her or even just standing in the victimhood, I could see a different perception. I could start to see myself having the attention to my growth, seeing my own clarity, seeing my own refinement, seeing my adjustments accelerate. Attention directs refinement. What you pay attention to directs it. If you're paying attention to the yellow brick road, then you follow it. And when you get to two different directions and you have no yellow brick road, if you fixate on the fact that if you go down one or the other, you might make a bad choice because there's no more yellow brick road, instead of going, well, maybe I need to just see the bricks as I'm walking the path. Maybe the bricks don't really have to be there, but I just have to choose one. That's the opportunity, right? I'm just using that as an example. Okay? Attention directs refinement. So let's bring this more into the workplace, because that's where it's real for you, right? You take a job because you feel it might be stable, because you want that stability. You accept a promotion because it feels like I'm growing, I'm moving up the ladder. You stay under a manager because that feels secure. You don't feel like he or she is going to change their direction, and you feel stable. But then months later, something shifts. You begin to feel like the role is becoming heavy for you. The environment has all of a sudden misaligned. You can't tell whether it's you or somebody else. Communication between your boss or your colleagues or your coworkers feels strained. You're showing up every day, but something inside you is shrinking. This is a scenario. Matter of fact, it's a scenario that happened to me. Adjustment does not immediately say quit. But that was my ego's go-to. Right? Adjustment had me finally ask, what needs to be refined? What needs to be changed? Do I need to set up some boundaries? Because I never had set up boundaries. I didn't know I had boundary issues. Was I not communicating something clearly, or was I not understanding someone else trying to communicate to me? Had my values evolved? Was it me that was growing and changing? Had I outgrown the space? These are questions, internal questions that you can ask yourself. This is what the law of adjustment leads you to, not requires you, but leads you to, right? It it can get you to ask these questions, right? You get this is the question that just kind of woke me up. Okay. Am I being stretched in a way that is uncomfortable but necessary? With this particular manager, I was being stretched in the growth, but it was very uncomfortable, but it was very necessary. So my answer was yes. Sometimes adjustment looks like a conversation. Sometimes it looks like developing new skills. Sometimes it looks like transferring departments. And I did that. But then my CEO wanted me back. And for whatever his reason, my spot was there when I came back and went, I'd rather work in this accounting department than what I transferred to, which was they didn't give me the right info. They didn't give me enough information about what that department was about. And the law of adjustment left enough room for me to ask a question within myself. Is this the department that I want to be in? Right? But sometimes it can look like the law of adjustment can show you that maybe you need to transfer departments. Maybe it's time. Sometimes it's looking like you get to leave and your dignity is you leaving. It's time for me to go. It's time for me to respect myself and go. But the law of adjustment gives you that moment to go within and ask yourself that question, right? The key is this: you do not abandon yourself in the process. As an employee, never abandon yourself. Because first off, it's not wrong being an employee and working for a great mom and pop company or a Fortune 500 company, as long as you're internally happy with who you are and what you're doing, and you do it well to the best of your ability, what you believe, right? Adjustment does not mean your purpose is wrong. Let's talk about entrepreneurship or being a mom and pop company, or starting your own company, startup company. You decided to start a business. You built the offer. You showed up consistently, and the response, it was quiet. Nobody else showed up with you when you were doing all the work. It doesn't mean you're wrong for going out on your own and starting your own business. It just means that your message needs a little refining to find your clients, or to refine your product. It just means that the message that you're trying to give your audience needs more clarity. Your strategy might need more recalibration. Doesn't mean you should give up or quit or stop or go bust, though you can. Your confidence might need strengthening. Your mission may still need aligning. The method may still need adjustment. It's not one and done. I know that for a fact, because I have my company that I finally understand why it was put on a back burner, is because I don't want to do mainstream accounts receivable and collections. I know who I am. I am Soul Awakening with Sandra. And I have so many divisions under that. Soul Talk with Sandy M. Star Meditations with light language. Soulutions Workshops. Soul Awakening podcast series. So many divisions already. I know I don't want to do accounting anymore, but I do want to teach you about accounting so that you can make have an opportunity to know if you want to wear all the hats, because part of wearing those hats, owning your own company, is you knowing accounts receivable, is you knowing accounts payable, is you knowing general ledger, is you knowing, because that's part of the hat that you'll have to wear. But when somebody told you stop being an employee and just go own your own company, they didn't tell you that. They just told you, hey, corporations are evil. They're monsters. Don't work for them. But they didn't tell you what it's like to wear all the hats. Right? I'm just saying. Now you have to learn that your method might need adjusting. It doesn't mean that you have to stop trying to own your own business. There's a difference between quitting and recalibrating. Gautama, I believe Buddha, said, I think this is in the Dhamma Prada, and I think that's where I, saw the quote from. Right, I half wrote it, and then AI helped me find it. It says, your work is to discover your work, and then with all your heart give yourself to it. For me, I sat with that and came out with, my higher being came to play at being an employee. So I have to look back on it and go, well, I played the role in some of the playgrounds that I played on. Being an employee were very interesting. So let's bring this into everyday life, just everyday life. This is an example. This has happened to me. That's why I made it an example. You're in the grocery store and the lines are long, Someone has too many items, right? The cashier is overwhelmed and you're kind of feeling irritated, but you're feeling the irritation rise. Adjustment in that moment might look like regulating your tone, choosing patience over escalation, asking a question differently so it lands with respect, asking a question internally, not about yourself, but about the scenario or the possible scenarios that could be happening in front of me. The cashier being overwhelmed, and the person that doesn't know that they have too many items in their cart because their cart doesn't look over full. And maybe possibly they didn't have time to count them because they might have to go pick the kids up, get to pick the kids up before they get and have to pay extra with the kids being in the daycare. But it was easier to come to the grocery store and get all the items than trying to do it with them, right? I get to look back at that or look at that and let it land with some respect. So I'm in a conversation that starts to turn tense. Words could be misunderstood and energies could shift, or I could just play with that story and just have understanding. Allow adjustment to give me the pause. Doesn't mean that somebody's not wrong somewhere, but adjustment can help me have clarity. Adjustment says respond instead of react. And I know a lot of people will say, I got to let my ego handle that. That's how I got to regulate my system. Go ahead and do that. Just don't get mad when the law of cause and effect activates. I've been there, done that, right? Adjustment says respond instead of react. I found that that's maturity, being mature in the motion. Adjustment doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. It does not mean that you silence yourself. It means you refine your reproach or approach, rather, not reproach, but approach without abandoning who you are, without abandoning your integrity. Sometimes life shows you a version of what you do not want so that you can clearly define what you do because of the words that you spoke before. And it gave you exactly what you spoke before, but it did not give you clearly what you wanted because you weren't being clear about what you wanted. That's not a waste of time. The universe or energy didn't waste your time. It gave you exactly what you said you wanted. And then it said, okay. It gave you a pause so that you can find out if you like it or not. And if you don't like it, you get to have that moment where you go, it's not what I wanted, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time, dissing what I didn't want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this and tell you what I do want based on how I feel about what I didn't want. So now the universe can actually feel through your body what you didn't want. It's not a wasted time and energy. It's the wisdom that you're earning by learning about what you didn't want and how it felt, and then going to the universe and saying, okay, this is what I want. Let's lose this, cross this out, cross this out, cross this out. I'd rather have this, this, and this. Remember, if you refuse to adjust, you can possibly be in stagnation. It's your choice. The law of adjustment is always giving you that choice. If you over adjust emotionally, there's a possibility that you can destabilize. But if you adjust consciously, there's a possibility that you can expand. I say it that way because that way it gives you an either or choice. But for me, I say it when I over adjusted emotionally, I did destabilize, because I'm always talking about my Gemini now subconscious, that I can go there really fast, right? But I don't want my Gemini moments to be released. Yes, they're part of me, but my Gemini unconsciousness is learning from my higher self to be a whole, and that's what I want. It has the opportunity to tell me what the possibilities are that I can do, but I have the possibility through adjustment to do what I really want to do. Adjustment for me is love correcting course without condemning me as a traveler. The law of love, or the law of adjustment, is staying committed, is allowing me to stay committed to my purpose while releasing attachment to form, negative form. It allows me to change direction without losing any of my dignity, or what I consider my dignity. It allows me to define my path without shaming my past decisions. I found that as an employee, as a manager, as a owner, I got a chance to pivot. That adjustment isn't weakness. That I got, or that I have the opportunity, the continuous opportunity to be in it. It allows me to be intelligent, even through my mistakes. That I can love my recalibrations, even though I might have to go through them several times. And when I understood that, I stopped fearing life's redirections. I started interacting with them. I made myself a part of the scenario. That consciousness allowed me to move into leadership if I wanted to. If I wanted to be a leader in the workplace. But it also allowed me to find out if I wanted to manage people. And I really didn't. I liked working with people, but I didn't like managing people. I didn't like having the opportunity to work with a person who was a micromanager and expected me to micromanage, because that was not me. I learned that I could be courageous in wanting to start my own company, becoming an entrepreneur. But I also had to know that my emotional intelligence in my everyday life was part of, or the universal law of adjustment was part of that too. Carl Jung said, he said this, it was, go look it up, Modern Man in Search of a Soul, I think 1933. He said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart space, your heart chakra. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. When you're always looking at the outside and what's happening all around you and basing your life on what's happening all around you, which might possibly pull you into fear, all you can do is dream. But when you look inside and then take what you're seeing inside and putting application to it outside, you're awakening to the possibilities, infinite possibilities. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, right? Many thinkers, many teachers, many leaders have spoken to this principle, even if they do not call it by that. Maya Angelou said, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, just change your attitude. Viktor Frankl said, when you are no longer able to change a situation, challenge to change ourselves. Challenge to change yourself. And see what happens. See where the universe takes you with that. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. If you take that moment before reacting, there's a moment for you to choose a response. Ralph Waldo Emerson, everybody heard of him? Said that a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of a little mind. Want one more? Henry Ford. Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again. This time, you begin with intelligence, just a little bit, right? So Henry Ford said, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. Remember, across philosophy, leadership, psychology, and spirituality, the message echoes. Growth requires refinement. It requires adjustment. I needed to cough. Hold on. Awareness requires a response. Forgive me. My computer did something. Okay, we're back on track. Awareness requires a response. The moment you become aware of something, it's saying, what do you want to say? What do you want to do now? I'm here. Law requires evolution. The universal laws, all of them, including the universal law of love, requires evolution. You are required to evolve. Adjustment is not a weakness. It is wisdom in motion. You are energy encased in this human, as they say, meat suit. And it requires you evolve. It requires you grow. Energy requires you show it what you want it to do next. Growth, expansion. Wisdom, which is energy, is in motion continuously. So as I close, or as we close this part 5, right? I close it with saying, nothing in your life is wasted. Not the job that stretched you, not the supervisor that challenged you, not the business idea that didn't land, not the conversation that did not go how you hoped. Every experience is feedback. Every experience is refinement. Every experience is inviting you to go deeper in alignment. The law of adjustment is not tearing your life down. It's fine-tuning it. It's allowing you to take the opportunity to grow. It's allowing you to pivot. This is your story. It's not somebody else's. There may be other people in your story. In your story. But you're allowed to refine your direction without shaming yourself by mistakes, as we label them. You just made a choice. It didn't work. So now you get to fine-tune it and go in a different direction. You are allowed to refine your direction without shaming who you were when you made an original choice. Put it that way. That's wisdom. That's maturity. That's universal, the universal law in motion. So this week, I want you to just pay attention. You say pay attention to what? Where's life nudging you? Where's refinement inviting you to? Where are you being asked to evolve without abandoning yourself? Can you pivot without quitting yourself? You know, I believe you can. I'd like to thank you for being a part of part 5 of the Soulutions Workshop. If you find this illuminating, share it with someone who's going through something, whether it's at a job, whether they're just believing they're a lowly employee, or whether they're a CEO of a startup company, whether they're wearing all the hats, or whether they're a single parent or a collective partners in parenthood. Share it with them. Like, subscribe, and share. Why do I have to tell you that? But sometimes we're encouraged to just constantly scroll. But I'm going to tell you that because who am I? Soul Awakening with Sandra. So until next time, until part 6, Adjust with courage. Refine with your dignity, not how somebody else tells you should refine, and keep awakening in every area of your life. I say unto you, wholeness and balanced love to you and yours. One love.